this kind of enrages a lot of people. They just didn't realize, they just didn't know that this is the way it was. In a lot of states, the surviving spouse. Hi, Jeff Marsachi, the Plain English Attorney, and welcome to the video. Today, we are going to talk about 5 triggers that finally get people to get up and do their estate planning. And we're going to have a bonus one on how to do estate planning the right way. So let's go ahead and dig right into it. Okay, we have a lot of my clients that come in. It's not that, oh, well, okay, here's my checklist. I've turned 25 years old and I'm about to get married, and therefore I need to do the adult thing and get my estate plan. No. Thinking about death and what happens with all of your stuff afterwards, or even how to put into place healthcare, power of attorney, and other stuff like that, people don't put that top of mind. They just don't. It's not in them. There are plenty of other things they need to do and plenty of other things they would rather do, but something needs to motivate them to finally come in. And that's just the way I've seen it with my practice. Planning ahead for a potential crisis, well, we can put that off until we really need to. All right, here are those 5 things that really get people motivated to put together their own estate plan and get it all done. So, the first one is they have young children, and somebody finally says something. Hey, have you named guardians yet? Okay. This may end up, unfortunately, being something where there was a fight over custody of the kids because the parents got into an accident. And I've had a couple of clients over the years that came in and said, yeah, this kind of happened with some friends of ours. In one case, the couple had always said, hey, we would want you to be the parents. They were actually the godparents, but look, godparents are not a legal status. It just isn't.
If you think it's important for educational videos like this to get out there, then please help us out by subscribing to the channel.
It's more of an honorary thing, it's a religious thing. But until you're actually nominating them as guardians in the correct format, it's just totally up in the air. And this is what judges in courts have to deal with when someone passes on and there isn't any guidance from the actual parents. It's just looking at it fresh. They look at family relations, they look, and they give a lot of judges give a lot of weight to that. Environment. Oh, they said they wanted us. That doesn't mean a whole lot, but okay. And they go through this analysis and figure out who would be the best guardians for these children, again, with a lot of favoring the family. So, in the case we were talking about, the sister of the man who passed on, the husband, he ended up getting guardianship, and they just didn't want that to happen, but they never went ahead and did the actual documents. So, setting up guardians and nominating them in the correct legal format, along with all of the other items, including how are they going to have the money governed using either a will or a trust, making sure that's taken care of. But it's that guardianship crisis, or that guardianship realization, that gets people to come in and, okay, we just had our second kid, they're 6 months old, and we realized we didn't have anything, we need to do it. That's the first trigger. Right. Second one, this is where a friend or a family member actually left behind some legal mess. And unfortunately, I just statistically, it's the wife that ends up being the survivor, and they end up dealing with a lot of that mess. And we've had a lot of situations over the years where uh, some a couple's coming in, and it's like, yeah, our best friends, or my cousin, or even my brother and his wife, my brother died, and now my sister-in-law is having to deal with this whole big mess. And we just thought that the spouse was supposed to just get everything, it was going to be fine, but they didn't do any estate plan. And so, okay, Now there's this mess, and it's like, no, 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 we want to make sure that this doesn't happen to us. We hear that all the time. This big problem came about with someone else, and so now we want to make sure that we have everything all set up. Now, uh, we end up with a lot of our clients referencing this. And in particular, they're referencing probate, and that the fact that probate is going to take such a long time and there's all this paperwork and they want to avoid it. That's a part of the planning. For a lot of my clients, they want to avoid probate, but they want to also have the exact type of plan that they want in place. And they want to make sure that there's as few legal messes as possible. Right. The third big trigger that comes about and gets people to come in, it's their own health scare or a car accident or even just a near miss accident. Um, Many years ago, I had a friend. He came down to visit, and um, as he was in the air flying back home, the wheel fell off one of the landing gear. They realized that as the plane was taking off, one of the wheels just fell off, and so they got to their destination. Well, the connecting destination, and it was a big deal. They had to foam the runway and land the plane, and it's like, okay, I need to make sure that everything is up to date because they had a young kid. And, hey, nothing was in place. So it's these near misses or accidents that have them put in place a plan, but probably even more so than that, it's the healthcare power of attorney, the living will, and the other health related documents that they realized I had this scare, or even just I had routine surgery and I went in and I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have a healthcare power of attorney. They gave me some form, or I think it's only good at the hospital. Okay, so I need to put together that healthcare power of attorney, and then we look at everything else. That's another thing that a lot of people realize when they're finally addressing the planning, and it's okay, it's this one thing that brought me in, but we need to do all of it. We need to make sure that all of the planning is good. Right. So now we're getting to the fourth one, and this is more tragic than anything. It's when there is no plan or even an insufficient plan. If there is no plan, kids that are young, not minors, but 18, 19, 20 years old, or for that matter, depending on maturity level, it could be 30 years old and they're still not mature. Okay, they received this inheritance and it did really, really bad things. Now, in a lot of cases, people think of, well, okay, they're younger, they get this money, they blow it, they blow it. It can be worse than that. And there's this one case I was discussing with a financial advisor. He wanted to get his clients over to us. You need to do your planning. You need to do your planning. Yeah, everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's not going to be a big deal. Years go by. Well, the couple did die in a car accident. Their daughter was just a few months short of her 18th birthday, and she was just listed as the beneficiary on their entire portfolio. And this is going years back, and she just got $650,000 in stocks, liquidated everything, done. Okay, if you were to put it into 2024 dollars, I think that would be a little bit closer to like maybe 1.2, 1.3 million dollars. She dropped out of high school, married an unemployed 25-year-old man, bought a big house that she really couldn't afford to keep up long term, and still had $115,000 left in the bank, and said, I have $115,000 in the bank. I'm never going to have to work a day in my life. All right. It's not just that the money was wasted, it ruined her life. It completely destroyed her life. And it was because of this inheritance. If a plan had been put in place and taken care of things and put age restrictions in, had a trustee listed, then all of this could have been avoided. The money wouldn't have been wasted. And oh my gosh, I'm sure she wouldn't have dropped out of school and married an unemployed 25-year-old man. So these are very real things that happen. And when people hear that story, it's like, yeah, we need to make sure that we've got some strict age limits and caps and things that we need to put in place so that the trustee can take care of our children if anything happens, but not just give them everything right away. Right. So uh, here's the fifth thing that ends up popping up, and this kind of enrages a lot of people. They just didn't realize, they just didn't know that this is the way it was. In a lot of states, the surviving spouse doesn't just automatically inherit everything just because they're a spouse. Now, a lot of couples will do like joint with a right of survivorship on accounts, but these days there are a lot more people who are keeping a lot of their investments and other assets separate. Okay, in North Carolina, if a spouse passes on and there's none of this joint account or beneficiary designations or anything like that, then it ends up with a spouse. Let's say there's two kids. The spouse gets, I think it's the first 60,000 of personal property. Somebody can check me on that, and then they get a third, and then the kids split the remaining two-thirds. And if they're younger, okay, the court has to supervise that until they turn 18. What? I thought the spouse was just supposed to inherit everything. This law is so messed up, and this is just a blah, 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 blah. No, look, that's what the law says if you die without a plan. And it's when people hear these situations and they realize and they understand, oh, okay, I need to do something. That's when they're coming in and saying, I didn't realize this was what happened. Let's make sure we get a plan together and sew this up tight so that my spouse does inherit everything. And then we can put in contingencies for what if something happens to both of us. All right. So I promised you five triggers that get people in to do estate planning, and I did promise a bonus one. So here it is. It's not about having a plan at all. It's having an efficient plan that avoids the court system and the government as much as possible. And this is the avoidance of probate, typically using a revocable living trust as a solution. But we have a lot of people who've come in, they need to do their plan, or they have wills, and then, well, grandpa passed on or dad passed on, and this thing has been in court for 2 years. What's going on? We want to make sure that with our estate that all of this stuff doesn't have to happen, and that's why we want a way to avoid it. And the questions used to be, well, shouldn't we just set up beneficiary designations or joint with the right of survivorship? Well, wait a minute. A revocable living trust is probably the way to go. So this is where we end up having our clients go through the free trust course. It's freetrustcourse.com. And the big thing that's in there is my book, Estate Planning Basics, that just walks through, here's what probate is, here's the difference between a will and a trust, here's how a trust avoids probate, here's the documents that are typically needed with a plan. It's all in there. And something that we also just recently put together, we have a whole course and a way for people to do the documents themselves through our service, the Estate Patch. So if you go to estatepatch.com, you can learn a little bit more about how you can do this yourself and get a subscription to that service, and you can do your own estate planning documents, and you can keep making changes for the length of the subscription, which is up to a full year. Make those changes anytime you want. So you can check that out at estatepatch.com. All right. So those were the 5 triggers that bring people in to do estate planning. The bonus one of trying to avoid probate. And just as a note, yeah, the estatepatch.com. It does also do revocable living trust. It doesn't just do a last will and testament. So I hope you found that information useful. And as I always tell my clients, please stay safe, plan ahead, and enjoy life. And whatever you do, make it a great day.